Ladies and gentlemen, it's 6 o'clock, and I'd like to call the September 16th, 2021 meeting of the Columbia County Planning Commission to order. If you stand with us, Commissioner Wilder will lead us in our invocation. Commissioner Futch will lead us in the pledge.
Y'all bow with us. Lord, we thank you for another beautiful day. We thank you for the rain. Yes, maybe you can give us a break on it for a few days. We thank you for this time together for us to discuss the issues, make decisions that affect us all. Thank you for all these people that have shown up tonight, and y'all work things out peacefully. We ask that you give us a safe trip home from the meeting tonight and everything else in this.
United States, to the republic, nation, God, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated. If I could remind you to please silence your cell phones. We do have a quorum of all 5 commissioners present tonight. Gentlemen, you've had a chance to read the minutes and review them from our last meeting. If there are no changes or amendments, I need a motion for approval.
So moved.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Motion to approve the minutes passes 5-0. Gentlemen, you've also had a chance to review the agenda for tonight's meeting. If there are no changes or amendments, I need a motion for approval as the agenda has been submitted.
So moved.
Your second.
Second.
All in favor? Motion to approve carries 5-0. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to clarify that the Planning Commission is a recommending body to the Columbia County Board of Commissioners. Decisions made on rezoning and variance requests tonight will be forwarded to the Commissioners for final action on October 5th, 2021 at 6 p.m. in these chambers. If you wish to address the Board of Commissioners at their meeting, please see Ms. Kara Harden, and she'll provide you with a request to speak form. For those of you that have never been to one of our meetings here, we're less formal than that. If you've got some additional information you'd like us to have during our public hearing section of the meeting, raise your hand. We'll ask you to come up to the dais and take 3 to 5 minutes to give us your opinion, either for or against. We've got a second opportunity for you to address us and have your comments put on the record during our public hearing section of the meeting at the end of our meeting. So if you have something that's not on the agenda that you'd like to get on the record, please feel free to raise your hand. We'll ask you to come forward and give us that information. That being said, we'll jump into tonight's agenda. We've got 2 information-only items. First one, Ms. Montgomery, file MW210901 through MW210905.
Yes, sir. These are minor waivers for 5 lots off Linwood Drive in the Johns Landing subdivision, currently zoned R3, single-family residential. This development is kind of at the end of Linwood Drive off Riverwatch Parkway. And this minor waivers applied to the 5 plats shown in red. The minor waiver was to reduce the front setback by 5 feet to allow the houses to be shifted forward a little bit off of the easement that's in the back of the lots here. And that was approved August 30th.
Gentlemen, any questions on the minor waiver? All right. Ms. Neal, temporary use authorization, tax map 0731, parcel 001 Bravo.
So this is a request for a temporary use authorization at 4600 Columbia Road for Wimberley. It's approximately 100 plus or minus acres, currently zoned S1 special. They were requesting an office trailer during the time of renovation of their existing office. There shows the location of the site off Columbia Road. There's the S1 zoning and the location of the existing, or the temporary use trailer, which is going to be at the intersection of Independence and Wimberley Drive. And staff approved on, sorry, I forgot the date, September 2nd.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Gentlemen, any questions of Ms. Neal? All right, Mr. Butler, massage operator's license for Robert Stoodle, LMT.
Yeah, that's correct. This is a relocation for Mr. Stoodle to 6952 Moontown Drive East for mobile massage only. It meets all the requirements of the massage operator's license. Staff recommends approval.
Gentlemen, any questions? Mr. Butler? I'll need a motion to approve, deny, or to table.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the massage operator's license for mobile massage services for Robert Stoodle, LMT.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Motion to approve carries 5-0. Ms. Montgomery, we've got a final plat for River Pines Tax Map 077, parcel 050.
Yes, sir, this is a final plat for 5 lots for the property at 3951 Mulliken Road. That's 18.32 acres, currently zoned R1, single-family residential. This property is located nearly at the end of Mulliken Road, adjacent to the river. And it is being subdivided into a total of 5 lots with a minimum lot size of 1.65 acres and an average lot size of 3.66 acres. Only one of the lots has public road frontage on Mulliken Road. The other 4 are accessed with the 30-foot access easement over River Pines Drive, which is a private driveway. All of the lots will comply with the R1 setback requirements, and staff is recommending approval.
Gentlemen, any questions of staff? This is not a public hearing, so I'll need a motion to approve, deny, or to table.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion for approval for final plat for River Pines.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Motion to approve carries 5-0. We'll jump into our public hearing section of meeting tonight. Ms. Montgomery, file RZ 210903, major PRD revision.
Yes, sir. This is a request for a major revision to the planned residential development known as Tillery Park off Baker Place Road. This is the location of the property on both sides of Baker Place, just south of I-20, and currently zoned planned residential development. You have Canterbury Farms and several other planned unit developments in the area. Quaker Knoll to the south is being zoned R2, and other RA and M1 properties around the site. This is the aerial of the site. It would look a little bit different now. They are under construction on phase 1. And this is the existing site. So the site plan was approved with a 50-foot undisturbed natural buffer around the entire site that included along the Baker Place road frontage. That is as required by county code for a public road frontage. They are required to leave that 50-foot undisturbed buffer on the road. The request tonight is to revise that to include not just undisturbed, but to have an option to include a berm within that buffer. This is to reuse topsoil that's being generated during development of the site. The berm would generally be constructed in phases, starting at the main entrance and extending down Baker Place Road, and would be constructed with the relevant sections. We do have some conditions proposed regarding timing, just to ensure that we're not having houses constructed behind that buffer while the berm's not in place or not complete. So just to make sure that the timing is such that the berm, if it's being installed in that particular section, is complete and planted before the houses go up, so that we retain that intent to have a buffer from Baker Place before the houses are under construction. Since the construction of the berm would be on private property, nothing would extend into the right-of-way. None of the utilities departments have significant concerns. We do have utility lines in the right-of-way, but again, all the construction should be on the private property and should not impact any of that. Here's some examples of the proposed landscaping. These are from further up Baker Place Road, so this concept does kind of continue the type of development that's happened in that area already. And again, staff is recommending approval with several conditions. No lots within 300 feet of the buffer to be final platted unless that portion of the buffer is either constructed as the berm or has been designated as an area that will remain undisturbed. Minimum height of the berm to be 6 feet. That is in line with the buffer requirements for county code. When we have a structural type buffer, it is supposed to be a minimum of 6 feet in height. And then construction plans for the phases of the project have to clearly indicate whether they are berming that portion of the buffer or leaving it undisturbed, and show the grading and landscaping plans for that construction. And that concludes the staff recommendation.
All the years I've been on this board, I don't know that I've ever seen narrative that had too much topsoil mentioned in it. It used to be a farm, is that the?
That is what I understand, yes, sir.
All right, this is a public hearing. Is the applicant here? Yes, would you like to come forward and give us any additional information?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason Winkter, 17578 Atomic Road, Aiken, South Carolina, 29803. I think this is the first one we've run into as well with too much topsoil. Most of the time it's about a half an inch to an inch thick and blows away. But we think it was because it was farmed for a long time. It's really nice, and so we'd like to use it on site. The buffers up Baker Place Road seem to work pretty well. I mean, they're solid, right? And so as the The pine trees that are now, as they get bigger, you're gonna see right through them. So this solves several problems long-term, we think. So other than that, Danielle did a good job of describing what we'd like to do. The only comment I have on the conditions is where the landscaping must be implemented prior to final platting of the lots. We can't get irrigation meters until we have a final plat that is approved, recorded, and an as-built that's approved. So we have a hard time. We don't want to spend $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 on landscaping if we can't. So, and it may not apply to all sections. Some of the sections of this berm may be more natural, and but the ones towards the entrances where we'll have formal landscaping, we don't want to plant without being able to water. I don't
Mr.
know if we can
Sterling,
tie
what do
that
you,
to warranty deed, the warranty time frame, or a certain time frame after the final plat has been recorded?
So you mentioned your entrance landscaping, though, I mean, that should be final platted with this first phase. I mean, you should be able to get irrigation at least at the entrance with phase 1, unless you're planning to delay the entrance landscaping also until later phases.
No, we're gonna go ahead and do it when we get the final plat recorded. But in the future, there may be instances where you want the landscaping in before we can get the final plat recorded. We can't get irrigation meter until after the final plat is recorded. Can we add a time frame to it, like the berm has to be planted within 2 months of final plat and as-built approval? 4 months? I mean, it doesn't matter, just give us some time.
Mr. Sterling, what do you think a good remedy would be?
Spinning hard right now. Yeah, I hear what Jason's saying, and I don't entirely disagree with it. The only part I would say is things like, I'm looking at the overall concept and the area 1s, 5, 6, et cetera. I'm gonna plat somewhere in the back first, so the entrance here it will be landscaped and irrigated shortly after that first initial final plat, because you'll be able to pull irrigation meter for that. So not scab off of that or run irrigation from that, sleeve and pipe underneath the entrance road out to that berm 1. That's where you're headed first, and quite frankly, even up to berm 2, be able to sleeve and run irrigation from there. See what I'm saying? So you'd be final platting back here.
Yeah. I'm saying.
And sleeve in this direction.
Right, and that works fine here.
Yeah.
But long-term, there's gonna be instances where we cannot get the landscaping in prior to final plat. And I just want some flexibility to be able to get it, so we can get the final plat recorded and then get a water irrigation meter.
So chances are, and you'll know as well as any of us, your plan to, let's say in area 3, for example, you're not gonna probably final plat maybe the whole thing. History has shown you'll probably do it in sub-phases. You may, so you may only do this part here and then come back and maybe do this part here. Again, that's gonna be dependent on sort of takedown of lots and interest and all that, but I think there's an opportunity. 300 feet, I think we calculated, if I'm wrong, is it here?
It's roughly there.
I was gonna say, it's basically,
Right, I understand.
yeah, it's basically those lots only. Those are the ones that are most directly impacted. One of the other aspects too to keep in mind, and it's really for everybody's benefit, is installation of any berm activity that occurs on Baker Place needs to occur from the interior side, not from the street side to do that. So that's part of the other sort of the other rationale as to why getting that berm installed ahead of platting those lots and doing that, so that you can do that berm work and landscaping and all that stuff, get it done, get out of the way. I understand what you're saying.
Right, yeah, I mean, that's the plan. I don't have a problem with that. I'm just saying I can't get irrigation meter, and I don't want to spend the money in certain instances on plants and they all die.
Yeah,
Do it again.
may be able to figure something out with water utilities.
They used to love to sell us.
I know they love to get ahead of the, they'll get ahead of
Got
the
their hand
game.
slapped, so.
Yeah. I don't want to commit to too much in advance, but I think there's probably something we could figure out. I'll have to get with water utilities to kind of figure out a way to make that work, and we'll obviously work with Ivy Homes to figure that out.
That's something we can work in between now and when it goes to,
We got a little bit of time.
right.
We got a
So
couple
do
weeks.
we remove that condition?
I would suggest we leave it in there and let us try and figure out in the interim if there's a way to, and then, you know, obviously from this conversation, the Board of Commissioners will have an update as to what transpired between tonight and our next meeting.
So do we need to add to that condition, subject to a remedy that satisfies both the county and the developer? Be safe?
Good. I think you could leave it as is, and then we can get the Board of Commissioners to adjust it if need be, if there's a solution that requires a little tweak of that condition.
All right,
That-
gentlemen, any
that-
questions? All right, thank you, sir. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here that'd like to speak either for or against this particular rezoning? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and accept a motion to approve, deny, or table.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve with conditions, file RZ 210903. Table condition.
Do I hear a second? Okay, do we need to amend that to include something so we've got cover there?
Do we need to have some,
What additional language would you put in there? Because I'd be more comfortable so we've got something on the record that protects both the county and the developer. I know y'all are going to work on it, but I'd rather have something official in writing that protects all the parties, to acknowledge that we've discussed it and we agree that there needs to be a remedy. So how should we amend that motion?
Probably something to the effect of subject to mutual agreement between the developer and the county related to irrigation firms.
Could I get the gentleman to restate his motion to approve, to include that language?
I make a motion to approve conditions, file RZ 0903, conditions subject to mutual agreement on water with the berms,
Irrigation.
irrigation.
For the berms. Okay, and all other conditions are in place? Okay, does second still hold? Okay, all right, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Approved, carries 5-0. Mr. Butler, file RZ 210904.
Well, this is a request for rezoning from R3 to S1 off Colkey Drive and Brittany Way for a proposed utility contracting business. Here's the location of the two parcels here off of Brittany Way. Oh, I can't draw tonight. All right. Anyway, so off of Colkey Drive, shows the current zoning, currently zoned R3. You have some TR to the east, also some R3 as well to the north and also east. And then C3, you have R to the south and also M1 to the west. The aerial view of the site, again, currently undeveloped. And the existing site, again, it's a little skinny to get back in there. And also the plat of the property, again, one of the things that's kind of unique with this property, so Brittany Way is a private road. It handles all of the townhouse development over here, and then it connects into Colkey Drive, which is a county street. What is a little unique in some respects is it has an easement over it that this property uses to access to Colkey Drive. This shows the development plan. It's approximately 6,000 square feet for a utility contracting business. You have the office at the front and a warehouse behind it, and then you have gravel all throughout. Yeah. It's just gonna bother me, I can't draw on this thing. And then also, you have a buffer around it, as would be typical for any kind of industrial development. Then you have an access point on the south side of the property. And you do have, one of the things we'll be talking about with the conditions, you do have the street, or the access road that kind of comes in and kind of cuts off some of that buffer on that side of the street itself. So in terms of future development, this area is within the in-town neighborhoods, which this is not supposed to be in there. However, there is a provision built into our current Vision 2035 map that does allow us to kind of borrow from the Martinez Activity Center. This use by itself it's an industrial use, I mean, to be very blunt about it. The property to the south is zoned C3. This could go in C3. It could also go in the M1 that is to the west. In this situation, we feel that the use that can be there, this is probably the best use for it. It's one that you're probably not going to put a house there. It's not really big enough to include any more of the townhouses. But at the end of the day, this is the best use that should be there. There are some concerns with it, mostly to the landscaping and the buffering and also the building itself. Due to those requirements, we do have, actually, let me go back to stormwater. Stormwater does have one for an ingress, egress easement to access the detention pond for Hillwood Court, which is behind this property. That is one that hasn't had an ingress, egress easement before. So that's an important thing to have for them to go out there to actually maintain that pond. In terms of our conditions, we do have, excuse me, the landscape plan required review by the Columbia County Landscape Architects and Water Utility. Again, to address the design of that buffer on the east side of the property. Again, that is eaten up by the access portion, or the access to the property, and also easements for both the sewer line that's there, and also Georgia Power easement. That's the intent there, is to have that be a better buffer than what could be there. Also, we do have no elevations included with the application. So it does have a fairly typical comment that you guys will review and approve the elevations prior to approval of the building permit, and also building materials, again, with some requirements there, and also may allowing 25% on the elevation to be metal. Again, only on the eastern facade. That's the one that faces towards the townhouses. Everything else can be metal, or however they want to do it. So at the end of all of it, we do recommend approval with those conditions. The staff recommendation.
All right. Gentlemen, any questions, staff? This is a public hearing. Is the applicant here? Yes, sir. If you have anything you'd like to add to the presentation from staff? All right. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here that'd like to speak either for or against this particular rezoning? Yes, sir. I need you to come forward and give us your name and home address. Okay.
Wife owns the townhouse on the very end, but butts up against this project.
And you can draw on the screen to show us where you are.
Try to figure out where exactly he's wanting to put a driveway for this property. It's a ditch.
And that's the only way to access that property. And I think that's gonna,
And what
By-
kind of square foot, and
sir, if you'll address us as opposed to them.
I'm just trying to understand what kind of traffic is going to be coming through this subdivision, the entrance of this subdivision. Got kids playing and that sort of thing, all the way down to where this, past this curve where the property kind of starts.
Okay. Is there any answer to that question? What kind of traffic? Yes, sir, please come forward. Sir, if you'd yield the microphone. Please give us your name and home address.
Ollie Higdon, 960. In the morning when we start our business, I'm usually there, and employees come and pick up, park at the office. Folks will come and go.
All day long, or they leave in the morning, come back at night?
They'll leave in the morning and come back in the evening. But everyone that drives for me has a good driving record. I'm sure that won't be a problem. And I have 2 employees that will move small equipment for me, come to my shop, pick up small tools or whatever they need. Not a lot of traffic, in and out, 4 or 5 times a day. And of course, I have office staff.
All right. Thank you, sir. Does that answer the question?
This is the first I'd heard about this. Somebody forwarded notice of the zoning. Still own the property. Right here. End.
All right, sir, is there anything else?
Nothing else.
All right, thank you. Ms. Lightsey, I see you standing up. Please give us your name and home address. We know you, but everybody else doesn't.
Pam Lightsey, 113 Brittany Way. I am a resident there, although I leave probably before you're gonna get to work and don't get home till the sun goes down. It's kind of busy, but I know that we met, there's also some concerns from other residents that live there. We want to be good partners in this. Our concern also is what happens 2 or 3, 4 years down the road if he decides to sell the property, and then what else moves in afterwards. So we do have 26 units.
With this being S1, this is the only use for that piece of property?
Yes, it specifies very clearly it's a utility contracting business. It's not zoned M1 or anything like that. So if it comes in there and wants to do something different, it'll have to change.
And that
Go to the whole
primarily has to do with the frontage of the entrance?
And we do, because it is not maintained by the county. So that roadway is private, it is maintained. I've lived there since 2006. We haven't maintained, hadn't had to do anything with the road. So I know that there's some discussion between possibly the new owner and Brittany Way Townhomes Association to do partnership there, but county to help with some of that as well.
Something you'll have to take up with the commissioners. That's outside the purview of
understand.
our ability to make conditions or anything like that here.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak either for or against this particular rezoning? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and accept a motion to approve conditions to deny or to table.
Chairman, real quick, just to clarify the question that was asked. So if the applicant were to be approved and establishes his business and decides to leave at whatever point, and it's not a utility contractor that comes back in to backfill behind, they would have to come back through the same process.
Correct.
To make any, whatever the other future use might be or future use might be. Just to be clear, that we have to come back through this process, public hearing, notice, whole 9 yards.
Okay, so noted. Gentlemen, need a motion to approve, deny, or to table?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve with conditions file RZ 10904 rezoning from R3 to S1 off Colkey and Brittany Way.
Do I hear a second? Discussion? All in favor? Motion to approve carries 5-0. Mr. Butler, major PUD revision, file RZ 210905.
Thanks to the request for a major PUD revision at 1000 Westlake Commons Drive to revise the site layout and uses for the subject parcel. This shows the location of the property on the east side of Furious Ferry Road. Also the zoning of the property, again, currently zoned planning and development. Everything around it is zoned PUD for Westlake to the east there. To the north, you have the Claiborne, and across the street, you have Forest Creek, and also this is also.
You're having a tough time tonight.
I know, I can't do it. I gotta be able to draw on this thing. It's bothering me. Anyway, so we'll move on to the rest of the development. Just an aerial view of the site. Also the existing site. And the plat of the property, we're dealing with the tract here on tract 2 here. Also, so back in the 80s, this portion of Westlake was zoned for commercial use. I believe it was in 84. It was revised again in 88. So this parcel here, this is the approved plan. They currently build this if they wanted to. You do have the hospital site over there that is close to what was approved, so it didn't have to go through the same process. What they're looking to do, though, is revise the plan to this here. Again, very different from the previous plan.
What was the square footage on the previous plan?
It was 111,000 square feet.
Okay.
And this shows, again, very different. You do have basically 5 buildings oriented around a traffic circle. You have parking placed kind of behind the buildings away from Furious Ferry, trying to minimize that parking. You have outdoor spaces. You have a food truck court. Again, very much of a more kind of urban style development that we've seen these in Columbia County, but again, this is one that's definitely taking a little bit further than others. From our standpoint, really good design. There is shown on here the mobile car wash station. There is a condition to remove that from the application itself. And then everything else is basically using what was already in place, or that was already put in place, stormwater, sewer, utilities, all that kind of thing from the hospital development, or from the primary care development. This shows the proposed buildings. Again, this is the first two buildings on the front. I'm kind of hitting the high points because we are planning to postpone this, so we're not going to go too much into heavy detail with a lot of the requirements here. And again, the proposed buildings as well, and also rendering of those buildings. In terms of future development, this is on the professional corridor. This use would have C1 uses within it. There is some talk of there may be some changing to that, so we're going to kind of step back from that for a minute. In terms of future development, it does fit within that quite well in our opinion. We are recommending to postpone the request. The reason for that, within the original planning and development documents, our narrative, there is a requirement, or the ability, if you want to put it that way, that the Westlake POA can approve their architecture, approve the design of their buildings. That is something that is still in place. We've asked the applicant to make sure that there is agreement between the POA and the applicant to make sure that is acceptable. At this time, we have not been told that has been taken out. There's also a covenant that we have nothing to do with, but is still in place in regards to drive-throughs on the property. There's a request to have drive-throughs there. Again, the county is not involved within those negotiations, but that is still in place as well with the POA. So I recommend to postpone the request at this time for those issues to be ironed out between the POA. Again, for the conditions, if that has been resolved, again, we've heard it has not, but again, the proposed mobile car detailing site would not be permitted. Fairly typical condition for lighting, that would be shielded and directed away, and also a photometric plan for the lighting plan itself. And then also we have the dumpsters will not be picked up between the hours of 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. And then the elevations that we haven't seen would require review and approval by the Planning Commission prior to issuance of a building permit. And also, lastly, we do have a traffic impact study for the project from traffic engineering. That includes staff recommendation.
A couple of questions for you, Mr. Butler. How many square feet is this new development? 39,000?
Yeah, somewhere around there. Hold on one second. I
So
can't remember the exact
we're reducing by 60,000 or so square feet
We're losing quite a bit.
with no potential big boxes standing empty?
No.
How about,
You're about, 33,000 square feet.
how about parking? How many spaces
I believe it's
were approved and what are we
149.
dropping to?
Well, let's approve 149. I do not know about the original.
It's over 500.
556 spaces.
Okay.
So, again, very different.
So on the conditions, we're looking at eliminating the detail area
That's correct.
per the agreement from, 1985, no drive-throughs are allowed. And
No, well, so the agreement, you have kind of two things. C1, county C1 zone does not allow you to have a drive-through. That's what they're currently under. Then you also have covenants in place that don't allow a drive-through either. So the revision adds in the drive-through ability, but there's still a covenant in place that, again, we have nothing to do with, that takes out that ability.
so we've got, where the dumpsters are in the back, we've got a time frame we're limiting. Do we need to also include overnight deliveries?
We could, well, yes, you could, pretty easily. Again, the delivery side of that, I believe the code says for noise ordinance, it includes delivery or unloading of trucks. So it would be, technically it's already included, but it's not explicit in
Okay.
terms of the condition.
I'd like to make that explicit if we could. Gentlemen, do you all have any questions?
11 to 6 is the noise ordinance hours, so just
Right.
so that everybody's clear, that's where that's.
Yeah, I just know we've had some complaints about idling diesels and that kind of thing, and I
Understood.
don't think this will lend itself to that, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. I know that there have been some issues about drainage. Can you, before we open up the public hearing?
Yeah, so we
address
did
that?
have, again, stormwater is involved in all of our reviews. They do have their comments are pretty basic. Again, that's what we normally get. Again, sign improvements will disturb more than 1 acre. They have to file proper permits, NPDES permits, and EPD. Stormwater retention will be required unless site improvements result in no net increase in runoff, and also runoff reduction, stormwater quality will be required. Again, pretty boilerplate comments. In terms of the site itself, it has been noted there's no detention pond shown. The stormwater department did give us kind of a summary of what all happened. Originally, when the primary care came in, there was a pond proposed across Inverness Way that could have very easily been an eyesore for everyone. So And again, this is all done in consultation with both the engineer for the project, the Columbia County Stormwater Engineering Department, and then also the Westlake, at least Westlake property owners, but also I believe the POA was involved with it as well. So the engineer, when they were designing the system, they used the 10% rule in order to design a site without a detention pond. This allows for stormwater management to allow lower areas of the basin an opportunity to discharge at a less impactful rate. This goes out, can you go back to the aerial site or aerial view? And I can't draw, so I have to describe it to you. So it basically goes below Inverness Way, and yeah, keep going. And then it basically kind of goes that way towards Reed Creek, to kind of put it really simply. So again, that was worked with all the engineers involved with it. And again, the intent there is to get the runoff from the site to Reed Creek as quickly and as less impactfully as possible.
Passive runoff, not piped runoff?
So it goes into pipes.
Goes into pipes and goes that far to Reed Creek? Okay.
Yeah, and then I believe it goes across, land, and then also goes across an engineered system that slows it down. I'm not an engineer, I can't tell you what exactly it does. So, but again, the new site will be reviewed to make sure there's no greater runoff than what's already been studied. And if it does, then yes, there will be more stormwater controls that will be put in place.
All right. Mr. McLeod, I know you all had a meeting tonight. Did you all arrive at any conclusions? Okay. All right. Thanks, sir. This is a public hearing. Is the developer or the applicant here tonight? Yes, sir. Anything you'd like to come forward and add to this? Okay. So the request to postpone is still a valid request from you? Okay. This is a public hearing. If the motion to postpone is made and approved, we'll still conduct the public hearing since it's been advertised tonight, but whenever the postponement date is, we'll reopen the public hearing then. So if you'd like to make a comment, we welcome you to come forward. If there's anybody that wants to make a comment, we don't know if this will be the final product that we'll see. So again, I'd like to open up the microphone if anybody would like to come forward and speak either for or against this particular project, or you can reserve comment until we have a final plan at the next meeting. So either way you want to go, sir, if you'd like to come forward, give us your name and home address.
Mahi Majanovic, 3713 Westlake Drive. Also owned an empty lot on 3711. Been very involved with this whole site development over the last 6 to 8 years. I submitted a letter to the Planning Commission with pictures. Current stormwater system for the prompt care enters a 36-inch pipe which goes under the entrance to Westlake. It then empties out into the green space. There was supposed to have been a retention pond built, then changed the design to a Australian system where the water goes up into riprap and then disappears over a circle of riprap. And then it was just changed into a riprap-lined creek that goes behind 3701, 3705, and then makes a hard right across the sewer easement to an engineered spillway into Reed Creek.
Yeah, would you mind drawing that out on the map here? You can actually trace on that screen there.
Okay, it goes here. That's approximate. The point I want to make on this, just on what I just did, is this 5-acre site draining through a 36-inch pipe. The site's not even developed yet except for the prompt care. The rest is dirt. When we have a significant rainfall, I'm not talking tropical storm, I'm not talking a depression, I'm not talking about a hurricane, I'm talking about one of these 2-inch downpours. This system cannot handle it. It will not make the right-hand turn behind 3705 and go into the spillway. It also goes straight behind all this property, crossing our drainage system, Westlake's drainage system, which is called the Twin 60 pipes, which now is just causing havoc with the discharge from the Twin 60 pipes. Then it just hits my property right all in here.
You sound like you've got an engineering background.
Not officially.
Not officially.
And then it goes, along Reed Creek. The 5-acre shopping center is going to be impervious surface.
Much like the clay that's there now.
Yes, sir. But a little more porous. But if any of y'all remember me, I've been here on stormwater issues with Reed Creek since we developed Philo. Think about how far back we go and that I've been involved with this. I was heavily involved with the dermatology development and the retention pond behind that. I was heavily involved with the Claiborne development and the retention pond behind that. I was heavily involved directly negotiating with Lidl when they proposed their 4-acre shopping center above the Circle K on the other side of Reed Creek. Every one of these structures have retention ponds. This 5-acre site does not. And that is going to cause more issues. We have had issues on Reed Creek for 25 plus years. We created a stormwater department because of what started on Reed Creek. Do not put in adequate to above adequate controls on this site. It's just not responsible in my eyes. Recently, the D.C. Lawrence property across the street, across from Zaxby's, came to y'all, and you requested a detention site on that property. So what I'm asking for is, let's not just throw water into Reed Creek. We have enough downstream problems, Foxfire Bridge, Reed Creek itself, the pond, Bowen Pond, etc. You can put a retention pond on the back of this property and landscape it very, very nicely. Why also can we not put some water into the Fury Ferry storm water system that services the highway there? And not put everything on the 36-inch pipe. Let's mitigate the load across different stormwater practices.
Did Stormwater specify the piping they'd use with the system that you detailed out earlier?
No.
They didn't give us any detail at all, other than it would be piped all the way to Reed Creek
Yeah,
from the site?
that's it. There's nothing
Okay.
beyond that.
I think that we're jumping the gun a little bit because it hadn't gotten to a point yet where engineering and stormwater has made decisions on this piece of property to do with what this man wants to
But I
develop.
appreciate you getting on the record that it needs to be addressed.
But I'm just, 36-inch pipe does not adequately reduce the flow and velocity of that water going back into that green space and running behind 5 to 6 houses. That contributes to erosion and other factors. In summary, I think responsible development like the dermatology complex, Claiborne, what Lidl was going to do, would put in a retention pond on the back, heavily landscaped, also use the Fury's Ferry corridor drainage system, and if necessary, you could build a small retention pond, which was there at the corner of Inverness Way and Fury's Ferry when the prompt care was being built. There's lots of avenues that I think we should look at just to protect what we have done so far with stormwater and Reed.
And this is a question for Scott or Will, would a permeable surface with underground storage be a possibility for this, as opposed to a detention pond if the site won't work?
Yeah, certainly there's multiple options to achieving stormwater quality first and foremost, but also discharge, for the impervious surface amount that sort of anticipated here, and I think that's something to clarify too, that any approval recommendation by this board tonight or in a future action is simply the zoning component of it. They'll still have to go through the full engineered site plan process. That will all be considered, and designed into this. The design engineer will have to take all that into consideration. County staff will have to review and ultimately approve that design. but pervious pavers, underground detention chambers, things of that nature are all options. Bioretention swales, there are a number of tools in the toolbox, so to speak, in addition to digging a hole and putting an outfall structure on it.
Publix uses underground retention tanks, if I'm correct, and other forward-thinking method. I came here for the retention, but I do want to bring up one other thing. Columbia County recently adopted a new sign ordinance.
Or if I could get you to come back in public comments for that. Let us finish this.
Okay.
And let's stay with comments that are germane to this issue.
Yeah,
If we could do that.
yeah, the signage was mentioned in here, in the proposal.
Okay.
They're talking about square foot special signs on the facades. All I'm saying is, that sounds interesting, but be very careful in what precedent you set. We just spent a lot of time revising our sign ordinance.
The size of the sign dictated by the flat space, like out at Amazon, they were able to put in a much bigger sign because the amount of space that exposed there.
So Amazon came into you for a variance because of
Right.
the size of the building, so that's
Right.
a little different than what we're dealing with here. Where they're actually requesting, this is actually kind of the area where they're requesting to do some graphic signage on the building as part of the architectural design.
More of a mural?
Something similar to that, yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak either for or against this particular rezoning? Yes, sir. Please come forward and give us your name and home address.
Philip Green, 5774 Carriage Hills Drive. I'm a civil engineer working on this project. My partner, who's also an engineer, civil engineer, designed the prompt care facility and worked very closely with Columbia County and Westlake on the drainage and the stormwater management that goes on for the site. This 5 acres was part of that overall stormwater management that was approved with the prompt care and installed at that time. I can tell you, as Mr. Butler referenced, the 10% rule is for sites looking at a holistic approach to detention and creeks. And the idea being that there are instances, this being one of them, where letting that water go without detaining it first, because all detaining does is it holds it back for a period of time. And that delays that peak flow into the creek to a point at which the upstream peak flows are also coming down the creek, and then they combine to a larger peak flow. The idea behind the 10% rule is, again, you holistically study the basin, and you look at the flows leaving this site with and without detention as they impact the flows in the creek. If you can show that without detention, you're actually decreasing the peak flows in the creek at that study point, then you've accomplished the 10% rule, and that's what we've done for this site. So, I appreciate the idea that detention ponds visually look good for stormwater management, but they're not always the best solution. Again, all these detention ponds staggered through a basin end up releasing peak flows that hit the creeks all basically at the same time, and they end up with a higher peak flow. So that's the thinking behind this. Again, this 5-acre site was part of the original study in this 10% rule. There are new rules in place since the time of that relate to water quality and runoff reduction and that sort of thing. As far as using underground stuff, we'd have to look at the soils, but my initial thought would be that that site's been compacted, filled, and compacted. I don't think we'll get any kind of infiltration to make those kind of systems work efficiently at all. But I just wanted to get on record for that. I obviously will be back at the next meeting for the public hearing to talk more about the project. But
all right, thank you, sir.
Glad to answer any questions if anybody has.
Anybody have questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Green. Is there anyone else would like to go ahead and get on the record tonight during the public hearing? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and accept a motion to approve with conditions, to deny, or to postpone until a future date. And we need to identify what date that might be. Is a month enough? 2 weeks enough? 6 months? What?
Yes, October 7th, next meeting.
October 7th? Mr. McLeod? All right. So it would be postponed if the gentleman will make the motion to postpone until 10/7. Gentlemen, the floor is open.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to postpone file RZ 210905, major PUD revision to revise the site plan and allowed uses 1,000 Westlake Commons Drive to October 7th.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Postpone passes 5-0. And if you gentlemen could keep staff informed as to the progress of your meetings, I appreciate it. Ms. Montgomery, major PUD revision, file RZ 210906.
Yes, sir, this is a major revision to the planned unit development at Wright's Farm for several lots on Lawrence Street. This is in regards to the lot layout for the subject parcels. So this is the location of those lots within Wright's Farm, off Wrightsboro Road and Reynolds Road. Again, currently zoned planned unit development, as are all the surrounding properties immediately adjacent to those lots. So these 5 lots are on Lawrence Street, which is the main entrance into the project. Originally, from this concept plan, both sides of this main entrance were supposed to have these alley accesses, so basically you would not see any garages on that first stretch of the entrance road. As it kind of moved through the process, we'll see that changed. With the preliminary plat, we'll see there was a slope created behind these lots that kind of prohibited the alley from happening. And that is what that slope looks like today, so if anyone would like to try and put an alley on that hill. So instead, what was negotiated was that these lots would have slide-by driveways, which are a feature of some of the smaller lots in this development. That kept the garages de-emphasized, would have basically put the garage behind the house, so that you would have a similar aesthetic to the alley-loaded lots on the other side. Now, unfortunately, when the building permits came in, that requirement was not caught. Now, these lots all have architectural review board requirements, as well as getting building permits through the county, so there's multiple levels of review, and basically all of them missed the fact that they should have slide-by driveways on these lots. So these lots did receive building permits for typical front-loaded houses. They are all under various stages of construction. Both the ARB and the county have revised our processes to help catch this in the future, but at the moment, since the builder is building in accordance with approved building permits, we're recommending the major revision to bring these lots into conformance with the PUD to allow front-loading garages on these lots. So staff is recommending approval.
Any questions, staff? Okay, is the applicant here? Yes, sir. Anything? Okay, thank you, sir. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here that'd like to speak either for or against this particular rezoning? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and accept a motion to approve, deny, or to table.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve file RZ 906, major PUD revision to revise the site plan for lots at 2218, 2220, 2222, 2224, and 2228 Lawrence Street.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Approved, carries 5-0. Ms. Montgomery, you have the last item for tonight, variance section 90-53, file VA 210903.
Yes, sir, this is a request for a variance to section 90-53 for setbacks at 3821 Lady Court. This is the location of the property off Keg Creek Drive, backing up obviously to the lake and the core property. And it is currently zoned R4 recreational residential. In this zoning district, the rear building setback is 10 feet. We can see the existing house at the back of the lot and the previous deck there. They did receive building permits for removal of that existing deck and replacement with a new, larger deck. We can see from the site plan, there weren't actually setbacks on the plan submitted. So it was approved with this nice highlighted big note that said they did have to be 10 feet off the property line to meet the setbacks. If you go out and take a look at the site, they're not quite that far off the property line. That red line being the property line, and the stake and the blue lines showing the limits of the deck, so they're within a foot of that property line. Again, they are building in accordance with a building permit issued by the county. This lot is actually a non-conforming lot for R4. It is less than 40,000 square feet, and is certainly not a typical rectangular lot. It does back up to the core property as well, so there's no real concerns with impacting the neighbors. The Corps did comment on the variance. They have no concerns with the reduced setback as long as everything stays off of the core property. So we are recommending approval with the condition that the reduced setback applies only to the existing house and to the deck under construction, with any additional structures being required to comply with the building setbacks.
All right, is the applicant here this evening? Yes, sir. Is there anything you'd like to add? All right. Okay. I gotta ask, was Clyde holding the tape when y'all measured this? This is a public hearing. Is there anyone else like to speak either for or against this particular variance? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and accept a motion to approve with conditions to deny or to table.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve VA 21-0903 with conditions.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Motion to approve carries 5-0. That concludes our public hearing for tonight. We have no legal matters. Do we have any staff or commissioner comments? Okay. Any public comments with what little public we got left? I think I see Tyler Strong in the back there. All right. Welcome. This is the first meeting I believe you've come to, and thanks for the press for coming out tonight. Gentlemen, the time of adjournment is upon us. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Motion to adjourn passes 5-0 at 6:56. Next meeting is October 7th at 6 p.m. in these chambers. Thank you for coming out.